In this video, I'm going to talk through the adjustment that's available on Movento undermount drawer runners from Blum. We've got an angled pull-out unit, which is going to have a shaker style angled frontage on it that will need to line up with doors here. So it will be quite critical to get this drawer sitting so that the face of it finishes flush with the carcass that it's within, because the orientation of that face will affect the frontage that's fitted to it. We'll also need to be able to tweak the frontage to get the door gaps right. I've disconnected the drawer box from the runners. What you have with this system is the Blum Movento runner system. You have these fixing brackets which are clipped and unclipped by doing this, as you just saw. So what that's doing is releasing or engaging a clip that engages with this front of the runner here. To put it in, you just drop it onto the runners and give it a good shove, and the runner will pass and lock into there, and then it will get clipped there. So that clip will engage with this bit here, and that's what will hold it in place. Built into these front fixing clips, which I think are strictly called locking devices, you have two methods of adjustment. One is this wheel, which as you move that, will move the drawer side to side. So you really want to be moving that on both with two hands. And as I'm sort of rolling it that way, it tends to move the drawer box itself that way. You then have this little pinch clip. That's a little pinchable thing, which as you pinch it, you can slide that up the rack. As you let go, it engages there. Easier done with two hands. What that's done is that's raised a bit of grey plastic, which is supporting the base of the drawer. So as that goes up that angled rack, the whole drawer box will move up. So by adjusting those two independently, you can change the sort of twist of the frontage at the front there. So if I was to move the one on the right further up the rack, I should be able to close that slightly tapered gap there. Now, as it turns out, that rack is actually at its maximum already. I'm not sure if that's focusing too well, but that means I don't have any further play to make the adjustment I'd like to make. That's an important point to bear in mind when you're setting up drawers like this, is you should ideally place them centered on all their adjustment before fitting the front, so you've got somewhere to go. Now, we have actually already test fitted this frontage, so we should be able to adjust it to where it needs to go. Now, the other adjustment that's useful is at the back of the runners, and sometimes, say if you had a shallow pull-out and you hadn't got any other runners drawers fitted above it, you might be able to get round the back to make those adjustments. But in this case, you can't. So you have to think about what adjustment you need to make and then get round the back. We now need to tilt the whole drawer box that way, so it's a tilting issue, which means we either drop both the frontages, but I don't think we're going to get enough drop by doing that, using the front fixing clips. I mean, both the front fixing clips, I meant to say we drop, or we kick up the rear positioning, which we can do. So now I've clipped that off again, just before I look at those rear fixing clips, just to get a good visual on what was actually happening here, so that pinch thing, as that moves up and down, which I'd sort of need two hands to do, what's actually happening is this platform is sliding and coming up or down, and that's what the drawer box sits on. So it's effectively a floating drawer box with this system that just sits on this support and this support at the front, and then it sits on this is effectively a support platform at the back which moves up and down, and so is this. But what you also get at the back is these prongs. You've got a prong here and a prong there, which go into holes drilled in the back of the unit, which are drilled as per these measurements. So the measurement is 7mm off the inner face of the drawer box side to the centre of the hole, and 11mm off the drawer box base, which also needs to be notched out. I think that's 70mm. And this hole is 6mm diameter and 10mm deep. So you've got the same both sides, and that's what goes into these prongs. So onto the adjustment, what you get is on this side, the left-hand side, this thing. You see that? Oops, I think I moved the camera right. So you see how that's moving, that support platform, up and down. So that's going to give us the tilt. On this side, up and down is all you get. I'm going to take that right up and see where we get to. And note that as you're pushing it on, it's interesting to see how this is designed. This prong here is a little slope that just makes sure that as I'm pushing the drawer box on, that slope's going to kick it up so it sits on top of that support there. On this side, it's a little bit different. The thing for tweaking up and down is here. So you see you can actually move it quite far up. But you also get a side-to-side movement. So if you think about what's going to be happening there, that's going to, as you move that to the left, that's going to twist the drawer box like that. Move it to the right or twist it like that. So you could then even up the lineup of your front to make it parallel with the front of the carcass there. Now that suggests that there's a certain amount of float on this. So as that moves, that can cope with a bit of movement. So that pretty much is the full range of movement. I'm just going to see where we're at if we, sorry about the focusing issues here. If we take that right up, I'm going to see where we get to. So they're both pretty high up. I'll shove the drawer box back onto that and see if my frontage is as in line as it should be. Now, if I can access the runners like this, I like to pull them just near to the clips. And then you can either just give it a good shove, if you're pretty sure they're roughly where they need to be. We can sometimes just force them in. Try just giving it a shove. So see that kind of sprung noise that suggests it's clipped in properly. And now, having raised those brackets at the back, looks like I've got it just about right. I raised them almost to their maximum, and for whatever reason, perhaps because this drawer box has been assembled a little bit out of square, that maximum raise seems to be what I needed to bring the frontage flush. So I'd say that's adjusted well enough for the frontage to go on, which, by the way, when I test fitted it, I just put these domino location points, those go into the back of the door as well, so that the door will go back on as per the original test fit, and hopefully my gaps with the rest of the doors should be about right. and I've used my favourite Craig screws to secure the drawer box to the frontage. I'm having a bit of trouble getting that to locate fully into the brackets. But what does seem to work is to reach underneath, release and slide back the runner, and then just grab it and give it a good shove into the bracket. That seems to just be what I need to do on this one. Yeah, so that's sitting about where it should. So the drawer front should be slightly in from each side. I think it maybe just needs to shift a touch to the left, so I can do that with both those wheels underneath the front fixing brackets. Rolling them in tandem to the left has just moved the whole drawer box a little bit to the left. This, by the way, is the soft close and self close mechanism. The way that works is when it gets to this point, the little pin here engages to something within there, gets grabbed onto, so the thing that grabs onto it pulls back, but is dampened in its pulling back by the soft close mechanism, which is usually a mixture of a spring pulling and some kind of damper, possibly a fluid damper, resisting. There was still a little bit of a taper, a little bit of a lean forward when I put that on, but I was able to counteract it by moving those little pinch racks, moving them back up because they'd shifted. So both had a bit of movement up, which has now got the angle just right. So that's pretty well fitted. Well, I hope that's been helpful. Must be honest, making these videos helps to clarify in my own mind how things work. So I'll probably use this as a reference myself. If it's helped you, let me know, and even consider buying me a coffee using the link that's shown in the description below.